Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask, Learn, Grow, the show where the Reef team answer questions, share updates, and discuss topics from the digital marketing industry. I'm joined today with Ishita, who's our head of SEO, and Ishita's going to share some content marketing tips and strategies that are working well for her at this and her team in this moment in time. So, Ishita, should we start any kind of? Let's start with some tips. So, any kind of tips to share in regards to like a content audit? Because I'm guessing before you sort of approach anything, there's a certain audit or research piece that is carried out first. Am I right?
Yeah. So today I am going to share 7 tips in terms of content marketing strategies that have really worked for me in the past. But before I start, let me just share something that I found quite interesting. So I was when I was putting all of this together, I was doing some research, and then I came across an interesting research piece by Content Marketing Institute, which said that 91% of B2B marketers, they use content marketing to promote brand awareness. So that was where it kind of triggered that this is something that even I follow closely, that anything to do with content marketing, the starting point is brand awareness. So in my opinion, it needs to start from thinking about that how you need to create content that inspires, influences, and builds a connection with the audience. So that kind of like triggered, and then I started doing a bit more research. And then I thought that there are a few things that I apply on a day-to-day basis when I think about putting together content marketing strategies. And there are a few things that have worked for me. So today I'm just going to share few of those strategies. The first one is tip number 1 is that you need to create a content strategy in alignment to your customer conversion journey. So whenever you're planning your content, please make sure that it is based on the different stages of the journey, be it the buyer's journey or the customer journey. And always think about that when you are assessing the different stages of the journey, if during which stage you've got content to serve your audience and where there might be some gaps. So it's all about thinking and having that mindset that everything that you are going to create on your site needs to use the customer journey as a basis. And then if there are any gaps during, say, the brand awareness stage, then you need to make sure that you've got content specifically tailored for that stage in particular. So it needs to be a healthy mix, and your customer conversion journey should always guide you. So that's my tip number 1. Now, in order to put together a customer journey-centric content strategy, I always start off with doing a content audit. And that's where I follow the 80-20 rule, where I know like everyone might be familiar with this, but it's in content marketing, it's always the 80-20 rule. So 20% of the content, it brings in 80% of the results or the traffic. So this principle is something that holds true for every content audit that I've done in the past. And interestingly, few of our clients on whose website I found that there are a handful of articles that bring in maximum number of clicks and conversions. So which I find quite interesting, that there are times where there's one of our clients who since the last 2 years, they have got a blog post which is even outranking the homepage and a couple of their product and service pages. So that insights like these do guide me that you need to always follow the 80-20 rule and focus more on the priority content pages that you have, and then use that as a basis and use those insights, and then create something create something which is more of a focus content strategy rather than just maybe creating ad hoc pieces which has got no strategy behind it. So you need to first assess what your strong content pillars are, where you are strongly ranking on your site, where there might be areas of improvement, and what new content assets you need to create. So when I am doing a content audit, that's where I found that it's got plenty of benefits. It needs to be your starting point. That's where I found that you can use it, use those insights in terms of like how best your content is performing. You can also get knowledge about how your audience behaves, what they like, what they ignore. And I've also found that by doing a content audit, it gives you an opportunity to identify opportunities and gaps, which can easily fill into that customer conversion journey. And you can use those insights and start creating content and weave it as part of the journey.
And what you're talking about here is obviously at outset in the audit stage, but this also applies to an ongoing basis as well. So to keep reviewing the data and looking at what's performing, where the gaps are as your kind of strategy progresses and the publishing calendar takes place, and then obviously using those insights to steer it. Great. Okay. Are we up to tip 3?
Yes. So tip number 3 would be to create helpful content when it's most needed. So there's no denying that we are in times where majority of the target audience is working remotely, and they've got all the time in the world to consume content. So they're more likely to seek out content that inspires, educates, and informs. So here, what I like a strong suggestion would be that you need to prioritize the audience's informational needs over any promotional messaging. So make sure that you're creating helpful content that keeps them informed, and always try to stay away from promotional content, especially in times like these. Another way by which you can create helpful content is by incorporating storytelling in your content. So you can use storytelling to evoke positive emotions also in times like these. And one of the best content topics that can work well for your brand is by communicating your company's brand story. So storytelling is something that can apply really well in today's time. And as much as possible, try to mix up your content assets with more visual aspects. So mix it up with strong creatives, imagery, infographics, wherever relevant. So that's where I think, yes, you need to start thinking about what is required in during, be it like a seasonal peak period or a quiet period. Think about what your audience might be interested in consuming during those times, and just tailor your strategy based on that. So that's my tip number 3.
And then just on the promotional angle, because you're quite right, from like an ongoing content strategy perspective, you don't want to just be running sell promotion after promotion. So I think a good rule that that many might follow to kind of keep some sort of control on that versus the other content for other areas of the funnel is perhaps about sort of 5 to 10% is perhaps more sales driven lower funnel content as part of the overall strategy, and then the rest obviously at the higher ends, middle and higher ends of the funnel. Would you agree with something like that as a metric?
Yeah, that's correct. I think that's the right ratio, and it needs to be a mixed bag approach. You can't just bombard your clients with all like promotional content, because clients are quite educated, like the audience is quite educated at this stage. So it needs to be a healthy mix of being helpful in terms of creating content, but at the same time, if there are some promotions that needs to be pushed out, yes, you've got your campaign set up, but make sure that you are thinking about being helpful wherever relevant in terms of creating.
Okay, so moving on to the 4th tip then, which I think we mentioned it was content topics. So how do you go about choosing content topics for your strategy?
Thank you. Great question. So at the time of choosing topics and creating content, I always focus on the intent instead of just looking at traffic potential or keyword volume as metrics. So whenever I'm doing keyword research, I always think about the intent of the person using the search. And what I found is that sometimes as content strategists or content producers, the intent does get overlooked by content creators. So that's where the role of the SEO strategist needs to guide them, that it needs to be a mixed bag approach of weaving intent with search volume and other metrics. You can't just blindly rely on if I'm choosing a content topic or a keyword or a long tail keyword topic, then it needs to be backed up with a high search volume. You need to look at other aspects also, and that's where intent is the strongest measure or the strongest metric that you need to look at.
It's a lot. The algorithm's a lot smarter nowadays,
yes.
And it can. Whereas a few years ago, maybe struggle to identify the intent of a search or a piece of content. Whereas nowadays, the algorithm is quite smart at picking up the intent of the search, and then also the kind of context intent of the page as well. So nice call out.
And also, like I don't deny the fact that that the conversion rates are much higher for strong intent-driven content, and that's what we've found in all the content strategies and all the content that we've produced at Reef. That whenever we've thought about keeping the audience front and center and tying it with the intent, that's where those content pieces have been the strongest performing content pieces on the site. And there have been few times when those content, say as a blog, we've got the same set of blogs ranking for at least 1 year, and they are dominating featured snippets also for it. So there's a lot of benefit in putting the human aspect into the strategy. So whenever you're thinking about creating content, always think about putting yourself into the shoes of the audience and start thinking about what they might be interested in, and then create content.
No, a conversion, just to kind of pull back on that point, depending on the area of the funnel where the content's tailored to, a conversion could be an engagement conversion, it could be an opt-in, it could be a sale. The conversions are relative term depending on the focus of the content as well. Great. Okay. Please continue.
Awesome. So that leads me to my fifth strategy or tip, which is to adapt and customize content based on the new demand. So here, this is all about creating new content or landing pages in response to the new demand that might come your way. I've got an example. So I was reading an article about Canva. Canva is all in the news recently. I know everyone might have heard about it. So I was reading about what are they doing from a content strategy point of view, and what benefits are they getting. So I came across something where Canva has done something interesting, and they've created content that fits the need of VR.
Right.
So majority of the remote, as an example, majority of the remote work is now dependent on Zoom as a communication platform. Even like now, Zoom is the preferred communication platform for any like remote meetings. So that's why Canva thought about creating custom Zoom backgrounds. So how innovative is that? This is something I think something that definitely fits. It's on trend. It's something that there's a high demand for. So in my opinion, it's time to innovate with content. So you cannot just simply rely on what topics have worked in the past. You need to factor in all the latest like search trends also. And you can use lots of tools. So Google Trend is something that I rely heavily on, which tells me that if I did a search for like Zoom backgrounds, there's a huge spike in this year in particular. So things like these, tools like these, are something that you can try, and you can fit that in, and you can fit it when you are thinking about what new content topics you need to choose. So it's all about having an edge in creating content and being the first one. So you need to keep track of anything which is like a new trending topic and start factoring that in as part of your content strategy.
Smart, 100% agree, and important to kind of call out probably two different distinctions here as well, and that is evergreen content, which regardless of what's going on in the world or the current climate, this content will probably always be relevant, hence the name evergreen. And then you've got your other trending topics, which it may be current right now and then it might fade away, or it might not. It might be something new that you can kind of jump in and ride the wave, and then it may become something that's evergreen. It's going to be molded into the sort of fabric of society in the modern world for the foreseeable. And so good call, yeah, and you kind of need both, really, if you want to maximize the performance. Okay, great. Yeah, so let's move on. So what about, I know you use Google My Business as part of the content promotion side of things. So can you shed any light on how you use Google My Business as part of content promotion?
Sure. So that leads me into my sixth strategy, which is how you can use Google My Business to boost content and get your content ranking. And you can also use it for content promotion. So in terms of putting together a GMB content strategy, I always suggest that whenever a client has got an active GMB profile, firstly you need to make sure that you've got that local visibility, and then when you've got that all covered, it's all verified, you've got an active listing, then always make sure that whenever you are publishing any new content on the site, there is a weekly GMB post rhythm. So make sure that you are creating a weekly GMB post of any new content that goes live on the site. The benefit of doing that is that you can get instant views on your content without having to wait for Google to rank it in the top 10 search results. And also, I see it as GMB giving an option of free content promotion. So at times when someone is doing a branded search, that's where if they can see that this is the new content that the brand has produced or it's gone live, you can capture those eyeballs straight away rather than waiting for that new blog post or new content that you produce to be picked up by Google. And what I also suggest is that you can also re-optimize old content and bring them under a spotlight by using posts. And what we've also now started experimenting is that we've started promoting a YouTube video also via a post, which gets good coverage. And so in my opinion, GMB is one channel where you can easily cover off different stages of the customer conversion journey, and you can use it from a brand awareness point of view straight away. And another main benefit, which needs to tie into the ranking benefit, which is that if you regularly post on GMB, you can earn a good spot in the local pack. So in my opinion, GMB is one channel which needs to be looked at from not just a content, not just from a brand awareness point of view, but from a content promotion point of view also.
Okay, so to wrap up this call then, moving on to your final tip, which is once you've got all this in place and you've got a good solid strategy ongoing in production, being promoted, how do you measure the ROI of content marketing?
Awesome. See here, I am going to use a cliche term, which is what gets measured gets managed. So the only way to tell if your content marketing strategy is working is to measure and analyze your results and performance. So here, what I do is that I always rely on Google Analytics and Google Search Console to benchmark and track some key metrics. So in a way, like you can measure how many new subscribers are you getting to your blog, or how many times a lead magnet or an ebook is getting downloaded, or is your content like the new content that you're producing, what response are you getting for those new content pieces? Is it generating new traffic to your site or not? Another thing that you can look at is, from a metrics point of view, is GMB. Like when you're using GMB posts, you can also check how many views you're getting on those posts, whether it's driving the right engagement or not. So there's a lot that can be used in order to monitor the true ROI of content marketing. And of course, you can tie it with how many conversions are you getting from those key landing pages, which are like more content or informational driven, and then whether it is leading to a conversion or not. So in my opinion, it's all about testing and learning and making sure that you've set some benchmarks, and every quarter you are revisiting those goals and making sure that whatever are your marketing objectives for the content that you are producing, there's always alignment in it, and you are making continuous improvements to it. So it's always about testing and learning and reiterating what has worked in the past, what needs to be improved, where we can do something better, or what might be the missing gaps. So this is something like having a benchmark in mind and using some metrics. It's always good to have those in mind when you are thinking about content marketing, because you need to plan ahead. You can't function without having a clear goal in mind. So your goals should be clear. You need to know that this is what you're trying to achieve, because if you are trying to get a buy-in from the higher ups in terms of getting a content production budget, then you just need to make sure that you are making you're taking the right decisions, and you know what outcomes you're going to achieve with that.
A strong business case. And I'll add one more to this as well, and that's attribution modeling. So the sort of default out of the box setting with GAs quite often people look at last click, and which is did somebody land on a piece of content and then convert from that piece of content? But looking at it from a different angle in using different attribution models, you can see, okay, so in this customer's path to purchase, is the content playing a role in that conversion journey? And you get a more holistic view of its contribution to conversions. Whether you might find that certain pieces of content are driving a lot of the first touch, so they're bringing people to the site, and then these people are later converting. You might find that other channels are bringing people to the site, and then at some point the content is a touch point in the journey. The key, like you say, is analyze the data and make sure you know what you're looking at and have clear targets and goals, and that will lead on to the business case for the higher ups if you do need to or get signed to expand or secure the strategy. Excellent stuff, Ishita. Thank you ever so much for your time in going in depth into all these things. Anything else just before we wrap up this call?
Yes, I might just summarize things, what I've just covered. So to summarize, the key areas to consider when you are creating your content marketing plan is always start with a retrospection exercise of your current strategy, where you can identify any content gaps and opportunities, and then draft your content plan. Always think about your content production budget, because then that's where you need to weigh out that how long a short form blog post might take versus whether you need more long form content, or do you want to explore video as another content asset, or like infographic might take a lot longer to produce because you need to think about visual aspects to it. Then always have a plan of action for content promotion, because if you are creating content, you need to be clear that where you're going to promote it, whether it's going to be social or it's going to be via GMB, like I suggested. So there are plenty of avenues that you need to think of in advance before you even start producing content, because you need to think about, like, if you are going to create content which needs to go on another site, you need to have that outreach strategy in mind also. And then the last point, which is all about the ROI, that always be clear about how you're going to measure the ROI based on your key KPIs. So there's a lot that goes into a content marketing strategy, and it does take a lot of time, but planning ahead of time surely helps. And I feel that it is very important to humanize the brand and make sure that you are creating content that is helpful, that is always helpful, thoughtful, and shareable. So keeping all of this in mind does take time, but it's all worth it. So this wraps up the content marketing tips for this week. I might come back with more next time, so please stay tuned. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Ishita, for your time today. That wraps up today's call. So if you've got any questions about content marketing or anything digital marketing related, please feel free to reach out to us and we're always happy to help. If you'd like to ask the team a question for a future video, please send them in and we'll get that scheduled for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified of when the next video is available. Apart from that, thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.